Dr. Eaton, if we look at this framework of the Persianate and we see what is happening in India in the Hindutva paradigm of claiming everything which the Muslim practices or the Muslim history as something which is alien to this territory, to this region. Before we were discussing about how there is the indigenization of or the localization of the Muslims in the Indian context, and because what we are arguing is a lot of import, as if it seems like everything is imported. So does it lead to some level of weaponization by Hindutva, or how do we articulate it in a sense?
You're quite right. Hindutva has succeeded in weaponizing the whole Mughal period. As you're probably aware, the teaching of Mughal history has disappeared entirely in certain grades of the national curriculum today, and has been minimized in other grades. So there's a gradual sense of all that disappearing, or at least declining. I think the problem is ultimately that history has been weaponized, not just language. And when the Prime Minister speaks of 1,200 years of slavery, Baraso Salgi Golami, he's referring to 10 centuries of Islamic rule and 2 centuries of British rule, both of them seen as equally foreign, which is a huge mistake. It's true that in 1948, the British had the good sense to leave India. But obviously, the Muslim community is very much alive and well and still there, which is a problem for this idea of 12 centuries of slavery, right? What I would say is that this whole framework needs to be re-examined. What it ignores is the degree to which not only the Mughal Empire, but the Delhi Sultans had become deeply invested in Indian culture, Indian society, Indian language, Indian notions of kingship, all of this, to such an extent that the Mughal Empire, in my view, was virtually a Rajput state. I know that will alarm people.
Please expand this. But expand this idea.
Well, let's take the fact that when Akbar began to make alliances with the various Rajput houses in Rajasthan, he's bringing to the court not only the Maharajas, who, by the way, are allowed to continue remaining sovereign over their home territory, as the Watan Jagir, but they also, the princesses, the women, come into the Mughal harem. And as this happens, and very importantly, unlike the Ottoman Empire, in the Ottoman case, if you're going to become a state servant, you have to convert to Islam. Not Mughals. You stay, if you're a Rajput, you stay being a Hindu. That's fine. These Rajput women were coming into the harem, and these Rajput women remain Rajput, Hindu, of course, and they have the status of full wives of the emperor. So Akbar's son Salim is the son of a Hindu Rajput woman. When Salim becomes Emperor Jahangir, he marries a number of Hindu wives, one of whom becomes the mother of Shah Jahan. So biologically speaking, the Mughal dynasty is becoming more Rajput. Now, as we all know, we are all raised by our mothers. You speak your mother tongue, not your father's tongue. In every language, this is what they say. And these Rajput women in the Mughal harem transform the harem largely into a culturally Rajput space. So that as children were, and the children were raised in this harem, right? All the children were. So the children were raised in a space that was fundamentally Rajput. The language, of course, was part of this package. And what I'm trying to say is that many of the political customs that the Mughals adopt are purely Rajput. The idea of the Jaraka, for example, the space where in the balcony that projects out from the palace, where the Maharaja or the Sultan or the Emperor sits above the ground, overlooking the people. And it actually begins with Humayun. He was the first Mughal emperor to establish this idea of the Charaka among the Mughals. It was a Rajput custom where the Rajput king would be seated almost like an icon, like a murti. And it borrows a great deal from the whole idea of Hindu worship, where the icon is connected to the worshiper, darshan. It's exactly what happens in the Jaraka. The Jaraka, beginning with Humayun, who every morning gets up, faces east, the rising sun. As the sun brightens up his face, he is reflecting his own countenance to the people below, in the same way that a Hindu king would present himself to his people. It's institutions like this that I think most dramatically illustrate the degree to which the Mughals became profoundly Indian. You see it in language, and especially, as I say, through biology. These kings were not, the amount of Turkish blood diminishes every generation, to the point that they are indistinguishable from any other Indian.